Hey, what's up guys, it's Thunderstruck115, and today we are going to be taking a look at a video from somebody that's pretty salty regarding Tears of the Kingdom. Now, Tears of the Kingdom is fucking addicting, to say the very least, and is my current contender for Game of the Year. I mean, to be fair, the only other games that can really take it are Hi-Fi Rush, Everspace 2, and remakes of games from 15 to 21 years ago. But Tears of the Kingdom, it's fucking awesome. But we have those that don't think it's awesome, such as the individual we're going to be taking a look at today, known as Hiding in My Room. Which, upon seeing the thumbnail, I knew exactly who this actually was, that being Expert Review Zone. And if that name sounds familiar, it should, because way back in September of last year, I made a video on his awful Steam Deck video. But enough filibustering, let's go ahead and get into this.
Hello, welcome back to a new video. So recently I've been playing the brand new Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and as an avid fan of Zelda games and JRPGs in general, I knew I just had to play this game. Unfortunately, so far it's kind of been bland, boring, uninspiring, and sort of lacking in luster.
You know, if there's anything lacking in luster here, it's the piece of fuzz you are holding in your hand.
So as you can see, I have the game loaded up on my Switch OLED, just in case you thought I didn't actually play it yet. I am actually playing it, so you can see.
Alright, so I'm noticing two things right off the bat. The first is that you are still in the tutorial area. As you are on the Sky Island, you have no clothes, and you only have 3 hearts. Hell, you don't even have any of your abilities yet. And the other thing, and this is kind of pissing me off, but your footage is backwards. Like, am I the only one that's noticed that his footage is mirrored horizontally for some reason? Like, why?
So I've been playing the game for pretty much all day now, and as of right now, I can't really recommend the game.
Bull fucking shit. You are still in the tutorial area, and you have not acquired any of your abilities yet. You did not play for more than 10 fucking minutes, dude.
And I feel kind of disappointed with my purchase. Now, when the first game, Zelda Breath of the Wild, came out almost 6 years ago back in 2017, I played that too and finished it, and at the time, it was a really good game. At the time, it was kind of amazing that you could play a game that looked that good and played that well on a handheld device, and I was really blown away with the gameplay and the graphics. But fast forward 6 years later, in 2023, with the sequel, Tears of the Kingdom, I'm not really impressed anymore with this level of graphics. The game looks exactly like the first game. It just looks like they copy and pasted it. The graphics have not improved at all, even though I'm playing on a Switch OLED, which is one of the latest versions of the Switch.
Yeah, do you want to know why it looks the same as Breath of the Wild? Simple. It's because it's a game in the same series with the same art style running on the same hardware that Breath of the Wild did. No fucking shit, the graphics are going to be the same. Like, did you notice that the Oracle games look the same as Link's Awakening DX? Have you noticed that Majora's Mask looks just like Ocarina of Time? Have you noticed that Spirit Tracks looks the exact fucking same as Phantom Hourglass? The only real instance I can think of 2 Zelda games releasing on the same system but with different visuals is Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, but that makes sense given that they have radically different art styles. Also, bringing up the Switch OLED is a moot point considering that it's literally just a regular Nintendo Switch but with more internal storage and an OLED screen. It is not more powerful than the regular Nintendo Switch.
It looks exactly the same as the first game almost 6 years ago. I just find it kind of sad and disappointing that the game has made absolutely no graphical improvements after all of these years. And I guess it's not entirely the game's fault because Nintendo refuses to put out a Switch 2 or a Switch Pro which can handle better graphics, and this is kind of the limitations of the hardware.
Exactly! If you wanted a sequel to Breath of the Wild with the same art style to look better than Breath of the Wild, you're gonna need better hardware.
But come on, it's 2023 now and we have such amazing and powerful handheld devices such as the Steam Deck and the Neo 2, which can play AAA modern games with 720p and 60 FPS graphics, and this is just kind of lacking in luster for 2023. The graphics of Tears of the Kingdom look like they've been drawn by a 5-year-old using a crayon.
Okay, I understand that the graphical fidelity of Tears of the Kingdom isn't quite as impressive compared to most other titles considering the hardware it's stuck on, but come on, it doesn't look that fucking bad. A lot of its shortcomings in the graphical fidelity department are more than made up for with its unique art style. And while I definitely agree that Nintendo should pull their head out of their ass and make some more powerful hardware considering that the Switch is really showing its age, at the same time, that's more of an issue with Nintendo's hardware division rather than their game developers. Because as long as they are stuck on the Nintendo Switch hardware, they are going to be limited by the capabilities of said hardware.
The textures are just so low resolution, and the thing that I really dislike are the shadows. Even though they have dynamic lighting and the shadows move around as the sun sets and rises, the shadows just kind of flicker and they have this weird kind of vibrating effect which looks really strange and jarring when you're looking at it. The draw distance is also kind of disappointing, but the art style of the game is okay, I guess, if you're into that anime kind of style.
That's not an anime style, that is cell shading.
I have to say it is quite nice to hear a bit more voice acting in the game, but unfortunately Link still does not speak. I know it's part of his character that he doesn't speak, but I just find this kind of lazy writing. It's just like, oh, we're going to make this character not speak so we don't have to spend money on a voice actor.
My guy, have you never heard of a silent protagonist before? Because those are quite fucking common. You know, like Gordon Freeman from Half-Life, Morgan Yu from Prey, Corvo from Dishonored 1. Like, just because Link is a silent protagonist doesn't mean he doesn't have any character. You can infer his character from his body language and his actions, that being one of a noble, courageous warrior. And if I'm being completely honest, I think voice acting would only make Link's character even worse, considering just how poor the voice acting is in both this game and Breath of the Wild.
It's just kind of hard to connect and relate to the character Link when he doesn't really seem to have much or any personality. So as for the gameplay, not only are the graphics and the art style of the game exactly the same as the first game, also the gameplay and the combat mechanics and the system for fighting is basically exactly the same as Breath of the Wild. It's like they just basically copied and pasted Breath of the Wild. I don't even know why they call this a sequel. It's more like DLC of the first game.
Yeah, the reason why they copy-pasted most of Breath of the Wild's mechanics into Tears of the Kingdom is because those mechanics are beloved, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, Nintendo also added a bunch of new mechanics on top of that. For example, you can use the Ultra Hand ability to build shit. There's the really cool Ascend ability, which is really nice. You know, there's the Fuse mechanic. In combat, you can attach different materials to your arrows to give them different effects. You get some new shit from the dungeons. There are 152 brand new shrines to tackle. You know, there's the addition of the Sky Islands, as well as the Depths. You know, there's the Gloom mechanic, there's quite a few new enemy types. Meanwhile, there are quite a few changes to the surface of Hyrule, such as Death Mountain cooling down and there not being as much lava, or the fact that there's a bunch of caves that weren't there before. You know, this game added so much to Breath of the Wild that yes, it is a sequel and not just a glorified DLC.
So because in the beginning of the game you lose your sword because you get attacked by some big evil boss guy, you don't really have a weapon, so you have to pick up random objects in the world like sticks and logs and anything you can find that's lying around. So you start off the game just whacking enemies with a stick, which is funny at first, but then gets very frustrating as your sticks keep breaking and you have to keep finding more sticks.
Yeah, because you're using literal sticks. No fucking shit, they're gonna break quickly. But stronger base weapons have more durability. And you can fuse certain items to your weapons to increase their durability. Oh yeah, that's right, you don't have the fuse ability yet because you didn't even enter the first fucking shrine yet.
The combat system is very basic and simple. Basically, all you do is target the enemy and then spam the attack button. There's no light attacks, heavy attacks, combos. There's no dodging or rolling like you'll find in Elden Ring or Dark Souls games.
Now that is just a straight up fucking lie. To do light attacks, you tap the Y button. To do a heavy attack, you hold down the Y button and then release it, which will do a different heavy attack depending on what type of weapon you're using. Like, one-handed weapons will do a quick spin attack, spears will do a quick series of stabs, and heavy weapons will have you continuously spinning around and hitting the enemies over and over until you either let go or run out of stamina, in which case you'll immediately slam down for a final attack, dealing area damage and knocking enemies into the air. Also, this game does have dodging. Sure, it's not a dodge roll like it is in Dark Souls, but if you're targeting an enemy and then hit the jump button while either holding sideways or backwards on the thumbstick, you'll jump out of the way of enemy attacks, and if you do this at the last moment, you can then counter with a powerful flurry rush.
So don't expect any kind of in-depth combat system if you're used to playing Souls games. You can't even roll or dodge out of enemy attacks. You can jump and you can use your shield to block and you can do like a jumping attack. I just find the combat system to be way too simple. It's like an extremely simplified version of Elden Ring combat. As someone who played a lot of Elden Ring and who was used to being able to mix and match different weapons and use all these different abilities, I just find the combat in Zelda Tears of the Kingdom to be sort of lacking in luster.
While I will agree that the combat system in Elden Ring is better than the one in Tears of the Kingdom, at the same time, Elden Ring is a Souls game. The whole point of a Souls game is the combat, whereas Zelda is more focused on exploration and puzzle solving. And even then, Tears of the Kingdom is easily the best combat system we have ever had in any Zelda game, because it basically took what Breath of the Wild did and just improved it. Honestly, my only major gripe with the combat system is the fact that healing is still extremely abusable in this game, but he doesn't even bring that up.
The enemies are also kind of stupid. There's no tactics in terms of how they attack you. They just kind of randomly rush at you and then just stand around whilst they wait for you to attack them. And they don't really pose much of a threat. I also don't really like the type of enemies you'll find yourself fighting against most of the time. I enjoy fighting living creatures like humanoid enemies. And these enemies are almost entirely mechanical and robot style enemies.
You wanna know why you're still fighting robots? It's because you're in the fucking tutorial area, dumbass. In the tutorial area, the only enemies to fight are the soldier constructs, and I think there might be a like somewhere as well. But once you finish the tutorial and actually get down to the real open world section of the game, then there are plenty of organic enemies to fight, such as Bokoblins, Moblins, Lizalfos, Horriblins, Hinox, Stone Talai, Boss Bokoblins, Wallmasters, Gibdos, and more. But you would know this if you actually got past the fucking tutorial.
I just find it a little bit boring fighting against these mindless, soulless robots. I know Nintendo chose this kind of enemy so that it's more child-friendly and there's not blood flying everywhere and it's like things dying in pain. It's just like a robot that doesn't feel anything. So I guess I can understand why they chose robots, but as an adult player who likes to be mentally challenged with his video games, I don't really find this game combat very stimulating or engaging.
My guy, there are plenty of living creatures in this game that you can fight that don't spew blood or die in pain. Again, if you would just get out of the fucking tutorial area, you would know this.
You also have this device which is called a Pudra pad, which basically looks just like a switch. It's like he has a switch in the game, which is very strange because I always think of Zelda as a fantasy kind of game set a long time ago where they use bows and arrows and swords and they don't really have electricity, but now he has a switch which seems like it uses electricity and also has a camera built into it, so you can take photos with it and use it to set pinpoints and use it like a wayfinding device, which I really feel like it's kind of immersion breaking.
I mean, it still does take place in the past where they're using bows and arrows and swords and shit. But no, it always seemed to me like the Puripad was powered by some kind of magic, not electricity. But even then, Breath of the Wild takes place at least 10,000 years after the Calamity, which itself seems to take place far after the events of all the previous Zelda games. And Tears of the Kingdom is set like a couple years after Breath of the Wild, I don't know exactly how many. But yeah, no shit, there's probably gonna be more technological advancements than there were in something like fucking Ocarina of Time or whatever. And even then, it just seems to be doing a light magic punk aesthetic, where the few modern-esque devices that it has are contextualized by fucking magic.
I just found it so weird in the beginning of the game when Princess Zelda whips it out and starts taking photos with it like she's using a smartphone. So as in the same way as the first game, this game also features open world gameplay, which I'm kind of sick and tired at this point at Japanese game companies doing a really bad job at open world gameplay. Same thing happened with Pokemon Arceus or Arceus. They made this big open world which was very bland and boring and empty. It just had some random enemies scattered here and there. Same thing with Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The open world is very bland and bleak and desolate and just feels kind of boring.
Motherfucker, Tears of the Kingdom quite literally does open world design better than 99% of games on the market right now. Literally, I can't really go more than fucking 30 seconds walking in any particular direction without finding something interesting. There's enemies to fight, shrines to explore, puzzles to solve, NPCs to interact with, interesting landmarks and vistas, you know, animals you can hunt, loot to find, weapons to collect, or even full-on quests. Also, I love how you're gonna say that Japanese game studios suck at open world games when, my guy, Western studios are not any fucking better. Shit like the modern Assassin's Creed games have big but empty worlds. Halo Infinite's campaign, while I do think it's overall pretty good, one of my issues with it is all the empty negative space in the open world. Dying Light, while admittedly parkouring around the open world was fun, what killed the game for me was the lack of fun shit to do in the open world itself, outside of having to engage in a combat encounter with an incredibly tedious combat system. Pretty much every Far Cry game since Far Cry 3, if not earlier. I mean, hell, this whole tendency for modern open world games to just dot a big world with a bunch of activities, but then just have a bunch of meaningless negative space between them is literally something I refer to as the Far Cry problem. Red Dead Redemption 2 also had this shit where I'm just sitting on a horse listening to dialogue for several minutes until I get to the actual destination to do the actually fun activities. And Redfall is, well, it's fucking Redfall. But ever since, like, the Xbox One and PS4 generation, like, the 4 open world games that are, like, actually, like, really fucking good with its open world design are Just Cause 3, Breath of the Wild, Elden Ring, and now Tears of the Kingdom. Of those 4 games, 3 of them were made by Japanese studios. The only exception was Just Cause 3, which was made by Avalanche, a Swedish studio. And even then, I think Just Cause 3 has the weakest open world design of those 4 games that I listed, although keep in mind it's still pretty fucking strong compared to most other open world games nowadays. I mean, I've heard that Witcher 3 has a good open world design as well, but I haven't played it, so I wouldn't be able to tell you.
So I'm trying to find my way to open this door, and it doesn't really tell me what to do or where to go. It just points me in a general direction saying, oh, if you want to open this door, maybe you should go to this glowing shrine thing over there that's floating up in the air. And it just kind of leaves you to figure out how to get there. And I don't really know what to do at this point because I'm just running around, hopping from island to island, trying to find out how to reach this glowing green thing. And every island I'm hopping around just has nothing on it. It just has like a few enemies, some trees you can chop down, some food you can gather, some wild animals you can hunt for meat. But apart from that, it just feels so empty and dull.
I mean, right there, you name several activities that you can do in this game. And granted, the stuff in the tutorial island isn't quite as fleshed out as, like, the rest of the open world, but that makes sense, because it's, you know, the fucking tutorial. Most, if not all, the stuff in the tutorial area is there to teach you the mechanics and tools that you will need to know for the rest of the game. And then when you leave the tutorial area and get into the rest of the game, it gets far more interesting.
Nearly 100% of the time you'll be doing exactly what you did in Breath of the Wild, which means chopping down trees, gathering wood, collecting food so you can cook it to make recipes and stuff that can help you later on in the game, and fighting random enemies using sticks and twigs and stuff like that. And then as you progress in the game, you'll unlock extra items and gadgets.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild's mechanics were liked for a reason. So no shit, they're gonna bring them back in this game, but they also added plenty of new mechanics as well. Again, the Ultra Hand ability that lets you build shit, you know, the Zonai devices, the fuse mechanic. You know, there are the depths, which is explored differently from the surface of Hyrule, and then the sky, which is explored differently from both of those things, each with their own puzzles, enemies, and challenges. Like, yeah, there's a lot of this game that's very similar to Breath of the Wild, which makes sense because it's a direct fucking sequel, but there's also plenty of shit that wasn't in Breath of the Wild.
So basically, it's exactly the same kind of gameplay loop that you'll expect to find in the first game, and I'm really struggling to see what is new in this game, apart from the fact that you're now up in the sky on these floating islands.
Again, you'd see plenty of stuff that wasn't in Breath of the Wild if you only played this game for more than 10 fucking minutes. I want to remind everybody that this motherfucker hasn't even reached the first shrine yet.
As for the story of the game, I don't really feel like I'm engaged or hooked into finding out what happens in the story. It just seems like very typical Zelda game kind of story. You accidentally reawaken some evil guy at the bottom of some dungeon, and then Princess Zelda gets lost or kidnapped or taken away, and now you have to try and rescue her. How come in every single Zelda game you have to go and rescue Princess Zelda because she's completely useless at anything, and then you have to start at the beginning, like Link's either lost his memory or lost all of his abilities because he got weakened, and now you have to rebuild his strength and unlock all the stuff that he just lost. It's just really bland and predictable Japanese story writing. We all know what's going to happen. He's going to defeat the evil power, rescue Princess Zelda, and everything's going to be fine again, and they'll save the Kingdom of Hyrule from this ancient evil. It's just so predictable.
Okay, now admittedly, I do think the story in Tears of the Kingdom is one of the weakest aspects of the game. I mean, I do think it's slightly better than Breath of the Wild's story, and there is one story twist that I actually did enjoy, but otherwise the story's pretty fucking bland and the presentation just leaves something to be desired. Having said that though, who the fuck plays Zelda for the story? Granted, there are some pretty cool themes in some of the Zelda games, like Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and Spirit Tracks in particular, but I rarely, if ever, find the plot and story of these games to be particularly captivating, and honestly, I'm just here for the fucking gameplay.
I just don't really feel like I can even recommend the game at this point, especially for the price point. The game costs £60, which is like $75 US, which is insanely expensive for basically what is essentially a copy and paste of Breath of the Wild, which is now a 6-year-old game. I'm not really impressed that I had to pay so much money for basically just a copy and paste version of a very old game.
No, I already explained plenty of differences between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that warrant it being a sequel. I'm not gonna go over them here since I'd just be fucking repeating myself though. Having said that, I will agree that this game should not be $70. I don't think any game should be $70. I mean, hell, especially when this game has some pretty noticeable performance issues. And literally every other Nintendo first-party title on the Switch has been priced at $60, if not cheaper, so yeah.
So as of right now, unfortunately, I can't really recommend the game. I would wait until it comes down a bit in price, and I would have to give it a 6.2 out of 10.
And just like that, the video is over. So I guess the key takeaway here is that if you're gonna judge a game, get past the fucking tutorial area and play it for enough time to see plenty of aspects of the game. I'm not saying you need to full complete a game if you're not having a good time just to see where all of the issues lie. But hell, if I could give Redfall 2.5 hours of playtime to try and captivate me, then I don't think it is completely unreasonable to expect this dude to play for more than 10 minutes. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, so if you enjoyed, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments what you think of this dude's Tears of the Kingdom review. Also, if you haven't seen my most recent community post, I am going to be doing a Q&A video for 1,000 subscribers, so if you got any questions for that, feel free to leave them in the comments section of this video or that community post. Anyways, that's it. Peace!